Hello and welcome to The Road to Recovery, The Road to Freedom with Mark. Another Friday afternoon has rocked around again. It's amazing how quickly these Fridays seem to come around these days. The older you get, the quicker they come upon you. Excuse me a sec. I just get those lids on. Well, my show is about mental health. It's about trying to assist people, talking about my experiences with depression and bipolar and obsessive compulsive disorder, things that I have suffered from for a long, long time. And it's become a very fashionable sort of a thing these days. There's a lot of emphasis on it now. There wasn't in the past for decades, and it always scares me a little when something becomes fashionable because, fashion very quickly becomes yesterday's fish and chip paper, and out she goes, and no one cares anymore. So I kind of feel like we're surfing on a wave at the moment, and at some point we're going to drop off it, and that'll be that. Sustaining something is extremely difficult because people get interested and excited and then they yawn and off, that's the end of that. There's been quite a few of these things come and gone over the years. I sincerely hope that this is going to be a more sustainable thing, because I would put it to you that the measure of a society is how we look after those most in need. The very young, the very old, the sick, the poor. I've been around the world a fair bit, and, it amazed me that in some really poor countries, there's no beggars on the streets. There's no one scrounging for money. Why? Because those that have a little feed those that have nothing. And they don't question it. It's how they live. It's part of their society. And I feel that in a capitalist society like ours, often money seems to matter more than people. And people are very insular. Their circle is close. They care about their loved one, if they happen to have one, their children, if they happen to have them. But as we go out to the periphery, they care less and less about others. Why is that? I don't know. And then we get to the point of strangers, and they care nothing for strangers whatsoever. And it's something that we never really think about. We don't think about kindness. We don't think about others. In fact, we're encouraged not to. We're busy fools, running around in circles like headless chickens. So busy, I hear it all the time on the radio, and it's encouraged. Hurry, rush, do it now, don't miss out. Oh, hurry. Every time we're pounded with this idiocy. Why, oh why? It's not what we need to do. We need to slow down, take a moment. Whenever I'm in a moment of absolute crisis, like I'm about to go off the cliff, I go out to a little spot all on my own, a place called Tarakirai, which is just a bunch of rocks on the south coast down in Wainui, and you're quite elevated up there, and you can see all the way down to the ranges in the south. On a nice day, you can watch the sun go down. It's kind of like you're looking southwest, and if there's snow on the mountains, on the ranges, it all lights up pink. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a very, very peaceful spot where all you can hear is the sea, and it just kind of cleanses your soul and gives you peace. And I would recommend to all of you that you find a spot like that, your own special, private, personal spot that you can go to just to get your head together. If you do have a partner and family, spend a little bit of time with your kids reading them a book, and a good book, not some crap. Read them something like Treasure Island or Great Expectations, something that's slightly beyond the level of what they're doing now, in order that they might be able to question you. Hey, Dad, what does that mean? What is that word? And light them up with a really great story and get them enthusiastic, get their imaginations going, because that's what kids need. They need their imaginations encouraged, and they need to be made enthusiastic about things, and then you'll find that their learning increases dramatically. And as far as adults go, a little bit of kindness goes a hell of a long way. People seem to have forgotten how to say please and thank you. And when I thank people, and I mean sincerely, don't say it like you hate them. Say it like you mean it. And the look on people's faces, they seem staggered that I say thank you. And I think, what has happened to our society where we've got to a point where we are so indifferent, so oblivious to other people? In Denmark, they don't pursue money as hard as what we do, and they don't look at gross domestic product. They look at gross domestic happiness. How happy are our people? How satisfied? Are they happy? We have one of the highest suicide rates in the world, and it is brought on by mental issues like depression. That's mostly what's driving it, and a lot of it is young men who find that they are judged to a point where if they fail, they lack definition and end up hating themselves. And that is wrong. Surely everyone realises that is wrong. Every single person is equally valuable and has equal rights and should be made part of society and find a way to engage with them. And finally, before I start my story, I want to just say two things: kind and thoughtful. Try to do one thing every week that is kind and thoughtful. Actually sit down and think about something that you would like to do that's really nice for somebody. Every Friday after I do this show, I go to see some friends, Graham and company, and I always bring them a pizza. A $5 pizza. Now, nobody else ever brings Graham and Christine and the other Graham anything ever. Oh, they come round and they have a coffee and they smoke fags, but they never do anything nice. In fact, nobody I know does anything nice for anybody. They just rock up at people's houses and take and leave. Kind and thoughtful goes a hell of a long way. Right, time's rocking on. I better get on with my story today. Now, my stories are about my travels around the world, but they're also, a lot of them are adventures around New Zealand. And one person in particular has greatly influenced that, my old mate Stu McNeil. So this story, the first one I ever wrote, in fact, is called The Dog's Day. And I would just like to say this is for you, Stu. Thank you very much for all of your stories, your friendship, your great adventures and all the training. I crewed for Stu. He's one of the most amazing hunters and fishermen that you will ever meet in your life. In fact, you never will meet him because he's not that sort of person. He lives way up in the boonies, and he's an exceptional individual, one that people you don't really come across very often, and I seek these people out, and they enrich my life for sure. I really admire the fishermen out on the coast. It's a very, very hard, dangerous life, but it does have some amazing rewards. This one, however, is one hunting trip that we went on, which was an exceptional few days we had together. And hunting is not really my thing, but when you're out with guys that really know what they're doing, it does make for quite a bit of excitement. I hope you enjoyed this story. This one's called The Dog's Day. It has been said that dogs live with determination. Never is that more true than in a hunting dog. The old mate, Stu, woke me at about 4 a.m. The air was cool as we geared up for a hunt. Stu's Winchester 30-30 lever action felt cold and heavy, but its advantages of being short so as not to catch on branches and its mule-like kick made it essential for our adventure. Spare bullets, a sticking knife and some twine rounded out the kit. We were travelling particularly light for this trip, and I felt like a passenger as I pulled on my boots and shouldered the 30-30. Stu chose 4 dogs from the kennels, all of them making a terrible racket as their time drew close, the excitement palpable. They stank but were fit to burst, rushing around, yet staying very near to Stu, their master. The dog's loyalty to Stu unquestioned despite the indifferent attitude shown towards them. Orders were curt and short as they made for the quad bike and the dogs came to join us. Stu kicked the motor over. I sat side saddle on a mudguard and pinned myself in by bracing my legs against the front. The dogs all tried to jump up on the back tray but could not fit and tussled amongst themselves in a game of King of the Castle. No bites or fangs as they were happy enough to jog alongside as we slowly pulled away down the drive and up the first incline, through some gates, and we were into the bush. In the cool of the morning, the stars slowly began to disappear, still a little dark when we picked up first sign. Rutted soil, so fresh we could smell it, and shit the size of a Coke can, which is where our name for these creatures came from. The spoor of a big tusker boar, the top prize in pig hunting, which had already passed by. The 2 lightest dogs, our finders, showed some interest and quickly swept the gully and the next ridge, but quickly swung back. They understand the role required despite no orders. Havoc and Quinn are the finders, having the right smarts and body type for the job. They are both mongrels, Havoc being dark and Quinn the more grey in the coat, but nature seems to have mixed the best in them. The other 2 hanging back can find as well, but will act as bailers or holders today. They must stop the pig and hopefully give it a good stretch. Their names are Bob and Meg. Both dark. Bob is the oldest and most proven. Meg is the youngest and must prove herself worthy to stay. The bush we are passing in is treacherously steep, and I am grateful for the quad bike, despite the noise and discomfort. We travel some 10 kilometres along the fire break and then park it up. At first, the silence is overwhelming. The air so clear, the sun's first lights play tricks with it. I stare up, my mouth agape at this wonder, and Stu smiles knowingly. "Come on," is all he says, and begins along the fire break. The dogs quickly fall into line, 2 left, 2 right, and I bring up the rear with the rifle. Up and down, up and down. The further we walk, the more I have second thoughts about today. For I have a specific task too. My job is to tip up the pig by grabbing its hind leg so it can be stuck or dispatched by knife. Once the beast is gutted, my job is then to carry it on back to the quad bike. I have been designated the bearer, so the further we go, the longer my return. We come across more fresh sign, and the finders quickly fan out in sweeping runs. I can hear them crashing through the bush occasionally, then a bated silence as we wait for the anticipated bark as one of the finders catches sight of his quarry. In these hundreds of hectares of regenerating native bush Stu lives on, he has introduced many pigs, and the trophies of many boars' jawbones, including hooks, are nailed up around Stu's place. I have little doubt of our success, but I feel some trepidation as we distance ourselves from transport. So far nothing. and the sun has risen. I feel its warmth despite it only being a little after dawn. The blue sky promises a blistering hot day where scent and trail will disappear as the pigs seek water and shade further down the gullies. The dogs have been gone a little while, tracking a mob of pigs. From the tracks, one big boar, a bunch of females and some young. If sprung, the cunning boar will run uphill through the mob and sacrifice the young to save himself. A good dog will stay on the boar if possible, but in the ensuing chaos may have to choose a lesser prize. This is where a good dog shows his true quality. Be it God or nature, some special dogs like old Bob will stay on the biggest pig he alone can wrestle or bail. Hopefully by then the rest can close in and the bail proceed as planned. To this point they hunt silently, crossing or recrossing the track through the bush, working their way down the gully in pursuit. Stu and I wait silently, having a smoke and listening quietly for the first telltale bark. I sense the anticipation. Stu is like a coiled spring despite his quiet nature. Then it comes. A faint, high-pitched bark, which leaves us in no doubt. A finder has sprung the mob. More barking as the mob breaks. Moving around, it sounds as if they are escaping and we hesitate our pursuit. Then a second dog rings out nearby. We look at each other, then charge headlong through the bush. I am so pleased for the short rifle, as the going is tough through dense bush, but soon I find the bottom of the gully and the pig's tracks. Stu and I lose touch of each other as the noise intensifies and a squeal breaks out. The pigs break and tear off down the gully as Stu and I regroup, then come across where the fight ensued. We wait for another bail or for the dog's return. Excitement and disappointment are tempered with relief as I realise what a haul it would have been from this place. Soon old Bob returns to us with blood on his face. It had been close, but the pigs managed to break downhill and escape. We'll try them again later, Stu informs me with casual confidence. Meg returns, so Stu wolf whistles up the others to return, and we slog our way back up to the top of the gully. By now there is real heat in the sun, but we push on with greater urgency as we lose the advantage of morning. Returning empty-handed is an option neither of us want to consider. More tracks, sign and sweeps as the sun begins to beat down and the cicada's song pulses almost as one great choir. After a few more kilometres, we stop at the head of a large gully where a breeze rises from below. We strip down and lie down in the scrub near the edge of the track. It offers a bit of a mattress and protection from the sun. Another wolf whistle brings the other two dogs up. Stu pulls out a pair of binoculars and scans the gully below, across this broad sweeping opening. Before long, Stu spots a sow with young in tow across the other side, trot-trotting like little circus performers. We decide not to pursue, and the dogs seem happy to stay, lie around and sniff the breeze. These dogs are veterans and know not to exhaust themselves, preferring to lap at muddy puddles and lie around for a bit. They come to us for reassurance, the bush having cleaned them up a bit. We speak to them in soft, low tones, and although tense, they seem satisfied for the while. Stu and I trade a few tales while we wait, and I wander down to find water. The thick bush smells wonderful, and the foliage cools the place nicely. So I return, reassured our afternoon effort will not be beyond me. This gully opens wide and flattish, coated with various types of bush where pigs and deer might hide. As the sun rises high, Stu decides to strike out again, this time to quietly follow the gully down to a natural wallow where the pigs might be holed up for the afternoon. We have the important advantage of staying upwind from them all of the way. The dogs noiselessly close in behind us as we look for tracks or sign. Before long we come across more rooted up soil and fresh droppings. The dogs show immediate interest. Havoc and Quinn break as if ordered and scoot off down the gully. Meg and Bob decide to follow, and we're not far behind with Stu leading. Within minutes another bark breaks out much closer to us, and Stu halts us both. Soon barking and growling evidences another bale, and we pursue. The mob breaks up the side of the gully, but the dogs stay on the job for a second bale and some bracken. We half swim through the bracken and fallen trees referred to as tiger country. We are so close, the last is a frustrating slog, and I come upon an unreal sight. Quinn and Havoc have bailed the longest pig I have ever seen. Through the snarls and mock charges, it slowly dawns on me that they have two big sows back to back. Each of them is on ahead, and they mean business. The other two dogs have another pig further down, but we must concentrate on the sows, lest the dogs get bitten. The squealing and growling intensifies, but I am unable to get through the bracken to tip a pig up. "Give me the gun," shouts Stu, and I respond quickly. Stu ploughs in, releasing the safety and shouting encouragement to the dogs as he goes. He knows a clean shot is impossible. Only a hip shot will do in this situation, and he thumps off a shot. One of the sows breaks, as both dogs set on the dying beast, and we swim into the site of the kill and pull the dogs off with reassuring praise of "good boy." As I close in, the sow is still twitching, despite a clean heart-lung shot, the light of life slowly flickering out in her eyes. We go through the motions of tipping her up and sticking it through the heart. She is pregnant with piglets, so looks huge at first glance. "Yum, in pig sour," says Stu as he guts our prey with ruthless efficiency. Having never eaten it. What's that? Sorry. Having never eaten an in-pig sow, it means little at the time. We tie up the front legs of the carcass, and Stu helps lift it onto my back, its front legs over my shoulders, literally piggyback style. I start the slow march back to the top of the gully, and the carcass feels twice the estimated 50 kilos. Sweat begins to pour, and I immediately regret smoking. Doubts enter my mind as I look up to where we ascended from. My heart thumps its complaint at this exertion, but finally I finish the first pull and I collapse out onto the track. The animal's blood has poured down my back and legs, warm and sticky. Gross as it is, I try to ignore it, as all four dogs emerge from the bush with Stu, who has a satisfied look on his face. "That'll be a good carry," he muses unhelpfully. I catch my breath and begin the carry proper. With every uphill pull, the air seems to get hotter and sweat pours off my nose. I dare not look up, but haul steady and constant. Stu can only make jokes and tease me, as this is a cakewalk in comparison to many he has had to endure. Still there is a glimmer of sympathy in his voice as I slog on through the heat. The dogs too seem satisfied with their work and amble along, showing no ill effects from their earlier battles. I am quietly pleased the dogs did not get gored or poked by a big boar. Those ivory tusks can rip the guts out of an unlucky dog, and Stu has had to stitch up his dogs many times. Finally, the quad bike comes into view, and I am exhausted by the constant haul. So I am glad to be relieved from my burden. Look at the state of you, laughs Stu. Still, it was a good carry, he muses. Even some guys struggle with that part. The small compliment, a little satisfaction despite my utter exhaustion. We tie the pig to the back of the bike, fire it up, and begin the slow haul back home in the afternoon heat. Thoughts stray to shade and a cold drink as we near the house, but for a couple of jobs. When we reach the house, I fetch a couple of cold drinks while Stu hangs the beast and scorches the hair off with a gas torch. After its defurring and delousing by fire, we hang the pig in the cool house, purpose-built for the job. We put the dogs back in their kennels with a few compliments, and I rid myself of bloodied clothes and shower off what remains as Stu tidies up the carcass. Once we're both cleaned up, we review the day's hunt, and Stu extols the virtues of the treat we were in for later that night. A few hours later, a hind quarter is removed and set to roast, my hunger and anticipation increasing with every passing drink. As the sun sets and a few friends gather, we begin the feast of roast pork and potatoes with roast vegetables. The meat tastes like a mix between mutton and pork. As delectable as promised, the banquet seems to quench my tiredness, but eventually I must off to bed. My dreams that night are filled with chasing pigs up hills and down gullies. The dogs are quiet all night with full bellies and the satisfaction of a job well done. I know another adventure is just around the corner. The dogs seem to know it too. Well, that's me for a day, almost exactly 28 minutes, and that's as long as my show lasts. I just want to finish off by saying a very big thank you to Michael and Veronica, who run our radio here and do a fantastic job running this not-for-profit organisation. Thank you very much to Wairarapa TV and all the great sponsors that help this place continue. It is an honour and a privilege working for this. I don't get paid for this. It actually costs me to do my show, and it would be nice to get a personal sponsor aboard, someone who would like to put their name to my show. That would really be a feather in my cap, and I guess in some ways recognition, which would be very nice. So thank you everyone involved, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and tell your mates about it, and yeah, I've got plenty more good stories. So it's bye for now, and we'll catch you again in a while. I'm off to Auckland to see my old mate Sadie soon, another chap who's inspired many of his stories, so I'll be absent for a few weeks, but I'll be back soon. But that's not going to happen for a few weeks yet, so we'll see you soon. Thank you. Ta-da.